About this time, a complaint arose. Greek-speaking disciples accused the Aramaic-speaking disciples because their widows were being overlooked in the daily food service. The 12 called a meeting of all the disciples and said, "It's not right for us to set aside proclamation of the word in order to serve tables. Brothers and sisters, carefully choose 7 well-respected men from among you. They must be well-respected and endowed by the Spirit with exceptional wisdom. We will put them in charge of this concern. As for us, we will devote ourselves to prayer and the service of proclaiming the word." Everyone was pleased with this proposal. They selected Stephen, a man endowed by the Spirit with exceptional faith, Philip, Prochorus, Nicanor, Timon, Parmenas, and Nicholas from Antioch, a convert to Judaism. The community presented these 7 to the apostles, who prayed and laid their hands on them. God's word continued to grow. God's word continued to grow. Even the number of disciples in Jerusalem increased significantly. Even a large group of priests embraced the faith. Stephen, who stood out among the apostles for the way God's grace was at work in his life and for his exceptional endowment with divine power, was doing great wonders and signs among the people. Opposition arose from some who belonged to the so-called synagogue of former slaves. Members from Cyrene, Alexandria, Cilicia, and Asia entered into debate with Stephen. However, they couldn't resist the wisdom the Spirit gave him as he spoke. Then they secretly enticed some people to claim, "We heard him insult Moses and God." They caught Stephen, dragged him away, and brought him they stirred up the people, the elders, and the legal experts. They caught Stephen, dragged him away, and brought him before the Jerusalem council. Before the council, they presented false witnesses who testified, "This man never stopped speaking against this holy place and the law. In fact, we heard him say that this man, Jesus of Nazareth, will destroy this place and alter the customary practices Moses gave us." Everyone seated in the council stared at Stephen, and they saw that his face was radiant, just like an angel's. The high priest asked, "Are these accusations true?" Stephen responded, "Brothers and fathers, listen to me. Our glorious God appeared to our ancestor Abraham while he was in Mesopotamia, before he settled in Haran. God told him, 'Leave your homeland and kin and go to the land that I will show you.' So Abraham left the land of the Chaldeans and settled in Haran. After Abraham's father died, God had him resettle in this land where you now live. God didn't give him an inheritance there, not even a square foot of land. However, God did promise to give the land as his possession to him and to his descendants, even though Abraham had no child. God put it this way: his descendants will be strangers in a land that belongs to others who will abuse them, who will enslave them and abuse them for 400 years. And I will condemn the nation they serve as slaves, God says, and afterward they will leave that land and serve me in this place. God gave Abraham the covenant confirmed through circumcision. Accordingly, 8 days after Isaac's birth, Abraham circumcised him. Isaac did the same with Jacob, and Jacob with the 12 patriarchs. Because the patriarchs were jealous of Joseph, they sold him into slavery in Egypt. God was with him, however, and rescued him from all their troubles. God was with him, however, and rescued him from all his troubles. The grace and wisdom God gave Joseph were recognized by Pharaoh, king of Egypt, who appointed him ruler over Egypt and over his whole palace. And over his whole palace. A famine came upon all Egypt and Canaan, and great hardship came with it. Our ancestors had nothing to eat. When Jacob heard there was grain in Egypt, he sent our ancestors there for the first time. During their second visit, Joseph told his brothers who he was, and Pharaoh learned about Joseph's family. Joseph sent for his father Jacob and all his relatives, 75 in all, and invited them to live with him. So Jacob went down to Egypt, where he and our ancestors died. Their bodies were brought back to Shechem and placed in the tomb that Abraham had purchased for a certain sum of money from Hamor's children who lived in Haran. When it was time for God to keep the promise he made to Abraham, the number of our people in Egypt had greatly expanded, but then another king rose to power over Egypt who didn't know anything about Joseph. He exploited our people and abused our ancestors. He even forced them to abandon their newly born babies so they would die. That's when Moses was born. He was highly favored by God, and for 3 months his parents hid him in their home. After he was abandoned, Pharaoh's daughter adopted him and cared for him as though he were her own child. Moses learned everything Egyptian wisdom had to offer, and he was a man of powerful words and deeds. When Moses was 40 years old, he decided to visit his family, the Israelites. He saw one of them being wrong, so he came to his rescue and evened the score by killing the Egyptian. He expected his own kin to understand that God was using him to rescue them, but they didn't. The next day, he came upon some Israelites who were caught up in an argument. He tried to make peace between them by saying, "You're brothers, why are you harming each other?" The one who started the fight against his neighbor pushed Moses aside and said, "Who appointed you as our leader and judge? Are you planning to kill me like you killed that Egyptian yesterday?" When Moses heard this, he fled to Midian, where he lived as an immigrant and had 2 sons.